Hey guys, we're back in the home studio. I'm facing the camera and I'm not holding an instrument, which can only mean one thing. Kellerman vlog! So, if you follow my channel, you probably know I reread the murder mysteries by author Jonathan Kellerman, and I talk about them. And hopefully I talk about them with you. Hopefully I talk about them with other people that are as invested in them as I am. Because when you reread a book, rewatch a show, rewatch a movie, listen to the same song, listen to the same album, it becomes a part of you, and you have strong thoughts and feelings and things you like and things you don't like, and I want to discuss those with other people. I'd love to discuss them with the author or the publisher or something like that, but I don't think they have time for that, and I probably don't either. So instead I get to make a nice little video and hopefully discuss it with you guys. So, today's book is Evidence. And again, these vlogs are for people that have read the books, but just in case you haven't, so Milo, one of the main characters, is an LAPD detective, and his best friend, Alex Delaware, is a psychologist who sometimes teams up with him to help solve murders. And they find two bodies in an abandoned mansion that's being built. It's not finished yet, somewhere in Southern California. And they can ID the man. He's an architect, but not apparently an architect of that project. And they cannot identify the woman, and so they're trying to figure out who she is, why they were in this abandoned mansion. They have, there's the obvious reason, but might be more to it than that, and why they were killed, of course. And the mystery takes them all over the place, both examples of foreign and domestic terrorism, and it's quite a complicated story, but not a terribly outrageous one. And so you want to know how it resolves, read the book. So, I don't have a whole lot to say about this book, except that whatever we're calling this era, where we now have the chief, and we'll talk about him in a little bit, this is a pretty solid example of the books from this era. There's a lot of moving parts, there's a lot of far-fetched but plausible yarns, everything comes together slowly, rather than one big reveal at the end. A lot of the older Kellerman books would be slow, big reveal. And this one has a few reveals along the way, and it's not quite, On the other hand, there are definitely some thin plot points, and we'll talk about a few of those for sure. So, here are my notes. Let's talk about them. Okay, since when does roast beef with Arby's come with gravy or jus for dipping? Have I been missing out on some sort of French dip from Arby's all these years? In one of the opening scenes of the book, there's a security guard who's hired to watch the construction site where the mansion is being built. And he's eating a roast beef sandwich from Arby's, and he laments not having a microwave to heat up the gravy. And I'm just like, I don't eat at Arby's regularly, but I've eaten at Arby's probably once in the past year. Maybe, let's say once a year is about how often I eat at Arby's. And it's usually I'm on the road, there aren't a lot of other options, and I don't want a burger. And when I was younger, I used to get their roast beef sandwiches because they used to do like a 2 for $3. And when I was younger, I was very poor, and I'm not a good cook. So what I would eat at home would be frozen pizza, apples, frozen vegetables, that sort of thing. So for, otherwise I would go out and get I lived on the dollar McDouble during my poor years. And if you're watching this, you might be too young to remember. McDonald's and Burger King and Wendy's all used to sell a double cheeseburger for $1. And two of those, $2, and you were full. It wasn't healthy, but I was 25. My body could take it then. And so Arby's used to do a 2 for $3 roast beef sandwich, and I used to, that used to be the thing when I couldn't afford much else. But in all the times I've been there, over the years, I don't remember anything with gravy. So is that just an invention of the author? Or maybe the author just didn't know that they didn't offer. I don't know. Or is there this book wasn't written that long ago. I'm not sure when. Probably late 2000s. Let's look it up. I'm guessing 2008. Let's see how close I am. 2009. I'm pretty damn close. So, the question is, did Arby's offer a roast beef with gravy in 2009? If you can answer that question correctly in the comments, you win this Guitar Center guitar pick that's on my desk that may or may not have the correct phone number for Guitar Center because they have changed their numbers a couple times. So, yeah, I don't think they did, but feel free to prove me wrong. Okay, A lot about Des, that's the architect whose body was found, and the mystery girl remind me of Gavin Quick and his mystery girl from a previous book. I can't remember the name of that book. Therapy, maybe, because it was his therapist played a big role. And Kellerman likes one-word titles, so I'm guessing Therapy. If I'm right, I win this guitar pick from Guitar Center that may or may not have the right phone number. So a lot about Des and his mystery girl remind me of Gavin Quick and his mystery girl. They're found in a rich neighborhood. The question is, are they lovers? Were they screwing? Which one was the target? Were they both the target? They have to identify the girl, which doesn't happen until later in the book. Yeah. And on that note, there are a lot of similarities between Dorian Fred and Christina Marsh. They seem to be similar people. So, okay. I have bitched about Kellerman's nicknames before and how certain ones, especially when he's trying to talk like a young person, they seem fake, they seem unreal, they seem very false, and just, I don't know any young people that talk like that. And granted, I'm getting older, but I was young once, and I would have been probably about their age at the time this book was written. And I've known lots of Christinas, I've not known lots of Christines, and I've known lots of Tinas. I don't know anybody that calls anyone with any of those names Teen. Hey Teen, how you doing? No, it's hey Tina, or hey Christine, or it's. I guess I should ask some of my friends named Christina or Christine or Tina if they've ever been called Teen. But it just sounds so like that's not how young people talk. Okay. Great shout out to Paul Williams, who is a famous black architect. He's mentioned in this book. Obviously, he wasn't alive at the time of the book. I think he died in the 50s or 60s. Let's look it up. The writer for there's a songwriter by the same name, and also a singer in the Temptations. So I guess I gotta put in Paul Williams, architect. Oh no, I was way off. Died in 1980, so he lived in a good long life. But either way, yeah, he was mentioned in the book. I'm trying to think if I knew who he was before I read this book the first time, because I would have read this book for the first time around the time it came out. And I'd like to think I knew who Paul Williams was by that point, but maybe I didn't. Okay, so I've talked in these vlogs before about how the timeline with Del's marriages, Del Hardy, Milo's former partner, the timeline with his marriages is inconsistent. In one book, he's happily married. In another book, he's divorced. In another book, he has a second wife, a third wife, and. And in this book, he's happily married, and his devout wife does not approve of Milo, which I believe was also used as a plot point several books ago, and then he got divorced. So maybe he's had multiple devout wives that didn't approve of Milo. Maybe that's his type. I don't know. The next read through, I'm gonna go through all the timeline stuff and the character stuff. I'm not doing that this time. I'm just making notes to things that stick out to me. Okay. So there's a rapper mentioned in this book that's obviously a work of fiction, and his name is Repel, but spelled incorrectly. And Kellerman's said through his characters some pretty derogatory things about rappers and rap in past books, so I'm wondering if naming one Repel is just another hint that he doesn't like rap music. I don't think Kellerman likes rap music, which is a shame, because like every genre of music, there's some great and some terrible. I used to say I didn't like country music, and then I remembered I loved Dolly Parton. So every genre has, good and bad. Okay, so there's a law firm, Forbish, Shizkin, and Shapiro, and I might be saying or spelling those wrong in the notes, but that's a law firm that's referenced in the book. And allegedly their website is Forbish Shishkin, one word, -Shapiro.net, which is the clumsiest website name. No self-respecting law firm would have a website name that clumsy, especially in 2009. Maybe in 1995 /Alta Vista. But in 2009, you can have a real website, and it would not have been that hard to type, remember, and then there's a hyphen in one place and not in another place. And no, that's... Kellerman is obviously not the person buying domains, because that's not a believable website. Okay, especially for a successful law firm that needs people to remember their website so they can log on and, I was in a car accident or whatever. So, now I get excited, and I made in my notes in all caps that the chief has arrived, and we know it's him. There have been references to the chief in previous books, and it's not clear whether it's the same police chief or if they've gone through a few. But in this book, it's very, very clear that it is the chief that Milo has a relationship with going forward. And he has a relationship with in this book. So I'm going to go out and assume that it was also the chief in the last book because it was kind of alluded to, but we know for sure it's him now. Supposedly, he has the highest law enforcement salary in history in his East Coast job before he came to LA. And I did some Google searching to try to figure out what East Coast city that would have been. The only one that really seems to make sense would be Boston. And I believe he went to an Ivy League school, so that would also make sense. And really, the only East Coast cities that would have a really, really expensive police chief would be Boston, Baltimore, or New York City. Ironically, the highest police chief salary in the U.S. right now, I almost said the world, I didn't look up other countries, is San Francisco. So, I'm going to assume that he's supposed to be from Boston. Okay, he's also noted as being divorced and recently remarried to a third wife. But in the next book, and this is, I guess, a spoiler for the next book, he has a teenage son with the wife that he's then married to. So, I guess that's probably a continuity error. Unless maybe it's actually his stepson or actually his stepmother, or maybe he leaves the third wife and goes back to the second. I don't know. I hate continuity errors, so I'm going to assume it's not that, and it's one of those more far-fetched scenarios. Okay? All this time, I thought Serrano was a real place. All these times I've been reading this book, and this is the first time I actually thought to look it up, and it is, of course, not a real place. And I'm wondering what it's based on. I'm going to guess Brunei, because that's the only Asian country that's Muslim, that has a sultan, that is oil rich, that has had some well-publicized, what do we call it? Conflict. So, that I'm going to guess Brunei. But, I mean, that's just off the top of my head. Okay. Kellerman loves old black men informants as much as little old ladies. Remember in the previous book, I think it was, and he's, finds two old men playing checkers or chess or dominoes or something like that. In this book, it's George Kaplan, who I believe was a shoeshine. And it just seems awfully coincidental that George just happened. He lives in an old folks' home, but he just happened to be on a walk and happened to see Monty and his posse, we'll call them, picked up on who their names were, where they lived, and so many details about them just on his walk. Either had the nosiest old man with the best hearing, or it's way too coincidental. So that's one of the thinnest plot points in this book, in my opinion. There's a restaurant, the Theater of Turkey. I think it might actually be Rubens Theater of Turkey. I couldn't remember, and I didn't want to go back and look it up, so I just put Theater of Turkey in my notes. Does not appear to be a real restaurant. Could not find it in a Google search. But there is obviously the very famous Turkey Leg Hut in Houston, I believe, which is in the news quite frequently and a favorite of celebrities. So, yeah, that's the only turkey-themed restaurant I can think of off the top of my head. So, the thinnest plot point, I already talked about the second thinnest, but the thinnest plot point is the interrogation at the end. I don't understand why anyone would expect Milo's interrogation technique to work, which is strange because he uses a much better interrogation technique with Helga, and he's known throughout the series for being a very skilled interrogator. So this seems very clumsy. He's just like, hey, friendly buddy, I need your help, and then BAM! I know your real name, now you're going to spill everything. And then she says, oh my god, I'm so glad that you asked me to spill everything. I'm going to spill everything. And there's just, granted, I've never been a suspect in a murder, but that wouldn't work on me. So, I'm not a criminal mastermind. So, okay. Do Rick and Milo only travel to Hawaii? I believe in a previous book they have traveled to Hawaii when Milo had to take some downtime. And in this book he has to travel to Hawaii again. And, Rick's got money. They could travel anywhere they want. Why would they go back to Hawaii? Go somewhere else. Go to Florida. Go to Dubai, while we're talking about Arab countries. Go to Italy. There's plenty of interesting places. Go to New Orleans. Eat some great food. Milo would love New Orleans. Actually, Milo needs to spend time in Chicago and New Orleans, which I believe to be the two greatest food cities in the U.S. And then I don't know enough about food cities outside the U.S. Obviously, Italy is known for great food. I don't necessarily, I wouldn't say specifically Venice or Rome or anywhere in particular. Obviously, Paris is known for being a great food city. But yeah, go somewhere besides Hawaii, where all you're gonna get is Spam and pineapple on pizza, and can't remember what else they're known for. So, okay. Next up is Deception, which is the book that solidifies Milo's relationship with the Chief. The Chief is a main character in that book, unlike any previous books, and probably, to my knowledge, he is more a character in that book than any book going forward as well. So I'm very much looking forward to Deception, and I'm looking forward to talking to you about it. So thanks for hanging out with me for this vlog. We'll do the next one soon, and thanks for watching.